Ahoy there, me hearties. This be Captain Silverhook, and you're listening to the Two Old Pirates podcast. Set sail for an open sea of stories, tales, and some really crazy stuff. I expect you to like and subscribe, lest you be walking the plank. Ha ha ha!
Hey, welcome to Podcast 55. Vinny's here, and we're going to go ahead and cover a topic that some of you, with everything that's going on with technology nowadays, I think that you guys will find this slightly interesting, and some of the people that are more our age will find it definitely interesting. And today we're going to be talking about
big box stores and department stores that are no longer with us. We're kind of calling this episode, and then there were three. Named after one of the main stores that we're going to talk about in this episode.
Earlier this week in class, I was explaining to my students that one of the last four standing Kmarts that are still open, you can still go in and buy merchandise from them and stuff, it's like a regular store, is shutting down in New Jersey. And so I was all like, man, there's only three left. So I was talking to Vinny, I was like, man, we should call this, and then there were three. And I was like, there's literally only three Kmarts. Now, Kmarts used to dot the land all the way across the United States, and there's three left, one in New Jersey, one in New York, and one down in Miami, Florida. So those are the only three that are actually left that you can actually go into. Still, it'll say Kmart on it, and you purchase it, and on your receipt it'll show the big K and stuff like that. For some of you watching, you've never really gone to a Kmart, or if you did, there was maybe one around that wasn't really run very well and stuff. But back in its heyday, when they were invented and when they were opened up in 1962, the same year that Walmart was open, it really changed the way that people went to go shop. There was I was talking to Vinny about it. I remember as a little kid, the one that was in Portland, Texas, there was a cafe in the back where most of the men that would bring their wives to go shopping, instead of having to sit out in the car or do something like that, if you didn't want to go shopping, you could sit in the back, and they had like, you know, nachos and hot dogs and popcorn and sandwiches, and it was a full cafe. And then, you know, most men would sit back there smoking cigarettes and drinking their coffee and waiting for their wives to go. And then there was clothing and sheets and toys, and it was just like a regular store, like a Walmart or something like that.
Yeah, they just didn't sell. They didn't really sell food at Kmart. No. That was the big difference.
And so it was huge. And you know, before Walmart really became as big as it did, we didn't get a Walmart here in Rockport. In my hometown until 1983. I was there on opening day. I think I still have a t-shirt somewhere where they handed them out saying, hey, and we're like, wow, a new store and stuff. But everybody went to Kmart over in Portland. It's only a 20-minute drive. And that's where you could get most of your stuff and stuff, unless you're going to go to like a little HEB, which HEB was very, very small back then. But anyways, so we thought we'd start off with the Kmart and go through a list of all these large stores that have been, some of them around for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
That they've all disappeared. And some of you that are very, very young that might be watching this, have either never heard of them, or you might have heard of them, but you didn't really know them, and you never got the feel of walking in and the smell and the look and the ceilings and the lights. And I know that sounds...
It's all about the experience.
Yeah.
Because each of these stores were basically their own thing. You know, they would have their own inner, like how they do their shelves and how they display their merchandise and products, how their employees dressed, what kind of carpet they used,
what their
on
bags
the floor.
look like, everything.
Everything, all the minutia of the experience of going to one of these stores. They're all uniquely different, and going to them was not necessarily, you know, fun and extravaganza, but it was a shopping experience. And these are just experiences that you can no longer have, or in some cases are getting ready to no longer have, in one case. But we have some stores that have been opened as early as the 1800s that unfortunately just couldn't last in a market dominated by the internet.
And the thing that I find so fascinating is, in a sad way, is that, you know, you can have a place open up and shut down in a year or two because it just doesn't have a lot of traffic, or maybe doesn't sell good food, or whatever it is. Like how Vinny just said, you have places that were open for like 80, 90, 100 years. That's staying power. They fought through depressions, and they fought through inflation. They fought through all this stuff, and they always had workers, and they paid, and they're gone. It's like a dream. It's like you have to read in a book, you have to look up on internet and see old pictures and stuff, but these are not like a singular place, like one taco place or something. We're talking about places that were in most states.
Yeah,
and
chains.
in most large cities there was several of them, if not 5 or 6, 7 of them. Like how if you go to like Los Angeles, there's going to be a ton of Walmarts. There's going to be a ton of Walmarts in Houston. So it was like that. Some of these places they were found everywhere. And
there were a ton of Kmart's, and now there's 3.
There's 3, and then there were 3. So. What's the next one that you'd like to talk about?
Circuit City is the one I would like to talk about because I have pretty fond memories of going in there and looking at video games and like hi-fi stereos. Even though I had no interest in buying a hi-fi stereo, it was interesting to go in there and look at the displays and touch the buttons. And
did you ever go in
them.
there and turn it up a little bit?
Yeah, and everyone's gone in there and played with the radios just to see, and stand inside the surround sound thing and hit the demo button just to see what it's like to hear all the gunshots and action movie sounds.
And they sold video games, they sold music, electronics. It was a nice store. I really like Circuit City.
Basically, if you wanted to trick out your television, your home audio, if you wanted to buy some video games and get the latest consoles, you could get them at Circuit City. And they were founded in 1949, quite a long time ago. And I would imagine back then they probably sold housewares and appliances.
I'm sure vacuums and all that stuff.
Yeah, because that's would have been like the future would have been, vacuum
the first
cleaners.
microwave ovens.
Exactly. Microwaves is what I was thinking about. So, and then they actually they closed up shop in 2009. Now, they did exist as CircuitCity.com for some time, but that wasn't Circuit City. That was somebody who had bought the naming rights of the company during the liquidation sale to operate as Circuit City to just sell stuff online. So that I think that expired in like 2012 or something like that. But Circuit City as a retail store went under in 2009, and they had really iconic storefronts too.
Yeah.
They had the big, if you're old enough to remember the commercials, they had the big red box that came down and like plugged into the strip mall center.
It was like an outlet that you'd be plugging in, or a plug that'd be plugging into an outlet.
Yeah, and they had the big red box that came down. So Circuit City had the big red facade.
It was there competing with Best Buy and anybody else, Radio Shack. It was on the top front, but something happened. And it's no longer. And I still remember where the original Circuit City was here in Corpus. I used to go there all the time, buy CDs and stuff. Next one on the list is Comp USA. COMP USA.
Yeah.
Comp USA. I bought my first real computer there with my own money after becoming a teacher. And I remember where that place was. It was over by the old Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
I remember going in there, and it was just a cool place. They had all different types of computers, and it was like a happening place and stuff. That opened in 1986 in the United States, and unfortunately it closed in 2007.
They didn't last very long, but they had pretty wide reach because a lot of people that I've talked to across the internet who, because we've been into like computing and games for a long time. So whenever I talk to people about where they bought their computer games from, CompUSA comes up in conversation a lot. I remember one of my favorite games of all time, Robot Arena 2, came next year. It's going to be 20 years old. The game came out in 2003. I remember I pre-ordered that at CompUSA, and when on the day the game came out, we drove out to CompUSA after school. I picked up my copy of the game, took it home. I played it all day, all night. I don't even think I slept that night. But I remember CompUSA was the place to go for the latest computer games. They would have them the day they came out, whether they were big box releases or even minor releases, because Robot Arena was not a big box release. It was very much dialed back. They only probably got a few copies of it. So I had one on reserve, kind of like how GameStop does game reserves today. And I just remember CompUSA being the place to go to buy new computer games. I remember I bought Serious Sam there. I bought Half-Life. I bought one of the Turok games. There's so many computer games I own in my collection that the boxes, some of them might even have the CompUSA price tag still on them. But that was where I went to buy all of my old computer games, was CompUSA.
Yeah, that first computer that I bought there was called Compaq. COMPAQ. It was a big computer company back then. I don't even think they're around anymore.
I think they probably got bought up by somebody.
Yeah. So the next one, why don't we do this one, because that's a big one.
Yeah.
So you want this one?
Yeah. So the next one is KB Toys, founded in 1922. If you can believe that, all the way back in 1922, and they closed up shop in 2009. Now KB Toys is a store that I remember I don't think they were really standalone stores. They were always in shopping malls.
Yes, they're always in the mall.
They were always in a mall. So I remember going to the mall and being able to go to KB Toys was a big deal. And I remember KB Toys always used to have sales on video games. I remember their price tags that looked like that whenever something was on sale, it looked like somebody had marked through it and written the new price on it, but it was like a printed sticker. Mm-hmm. I remember those old price tags they would put on things, and that's how they clearanced them out. Is I would always look for the red line, and I remember going to KB Toys. I don't think I would ever get like the latest and greatest new action figures or anything like that, but my parents would let me walk out with a toy, and it was always one that had the strike through it. So I'd get yesterday's toys. But
well, I remember going as a kid and seeing cool things and stuff. Then you get a little bit older and you're a teenager and you're like, well, I'm not going to look at toys, but there's still other things. There was always something, it didn't matter what age you were, that if you wanted some type of enjoyment, whether it be a board game, like a new Trivial Pursuit game or something like that, or, like how you said, video game. I mean, they had like a multitude of different things. They were almost always unanimously found in shopping centers inside malls, inside the mall. So, you'd go to the food court, you'd go here, you go there, but the thing is, it was always there, and you'd slink by and check out KB Toy Store and see what it was like inside there. So
for me, KB Toys still lives on, because I remember as they were closing down and liquidating all of their stuff and selling off everything, they had a really cool radio-controlled car that was like a speedster that had tank tracks. And I remember this was back when they were closing down, and they were regularly $20, but they were being clearanced out for $4.99 a piece. And I bought like 5 of them. And I build hobby battle bots in my free time, and KB Toys lives on because some of the parts from those old tank things are still in use by my team today.
And see, it's bittersweet because, like with Vinny saying what he just said, you're getting a good deal. And so you're happy that you're getting 4 or 5 of these, but in another way, that I'm buying the merchandise that will be underneath this roof because they're going to close that down and it'll just say for rent maybe in a month.
Yeah.
So it's a bittersweet thing that you're getting a really great deal. And like I said, it continues on with any of those mechanical parts that he can still use today to make something new, but that time and place is gone, and you can't ever go back. So next one is going to be called Woolworths. Now, I'm much older than Vinny, but I remember the Woolworths that was in Padre Staples Mall, which you guys now call
La Palmera.
Yes. And where there used to be a Luby's that was there forever.
Uptown.
Right next to it was the Woolworths. And the Woolworths would be your equivalent of like a Pick and Save or a Big Lots or something like that. They had a lot of things, but it was kind of a 5 and dime type place. It was very inexpensive stuff that you could afford. It wasn't like a dollar store because it wasn't really cheaply made. It's just it was made inexpensive for the average consumer to be able to purchase. And I just remember I was probably in my 20s, and I went into Padre Staples Mall and I saw going out of business sale. And Woolworths had started in 1879 up in New York, so it had been around long time. And I was all going out. This place has been here for like forever inside the mall. So I go inside, and sure enough, everything was being marked down and stuff. And I kind of walked around and sniffed around and looked and stuff, but I didn't really buy anything. It wasn't really attached to the store. It just always been there. And then by 1997, every Woolworths in the United States was gone. All those places, all the stores, all the places in the mall, they were all shut down and gone. So Woolworths, something that had been around for, 118 years?
Looks like
that.
Yeah.
118 years, gone. It's just gone. And most of you have probably never heard of Woolworths. And that was a company, a company that went from, 10 years after the Civil War all the way up until Clinton's second term. I mean, we're talking about a lot of American history where people knew that they could go to Woolworths with the small amount of money that they had and get some decent products, and they're gone.
So the next one on the list is also competing with Woolworths. This one lasted a little longer and was a little older. It's Montgomery Ward, later renamed to just Ward's, and they were founded in 1872, and they closed up shop in 2001.
And along with Sears, what were they most known for?
Their catalogs.
They had catalogs. Do you know why catalogs became so famous back then?
Yeah, because people who couldn't get out to go to the stores would be able to order through the catalogs and have these things delivered to them.
Yeah.
and it was convenient.
The majority of Americans lived on farms or out in pasture land. So what happened is they would get that catalog and sit around the fire at night and look through and say, "Hey, Mama, you can afford these 3 dresses," and Daddy, can I get this? And what happened is then you would mail the money in to this address, and the local guy would come by, post office guy, pick it up, bring it in, drop it. It would go to wherever, and then they would ship it all the way back out to you. And about 4 to 6 weeks later, you would get all these things that you had ordered out of. But you had to look at pictures. You didn't try it on or anything. But that's how America grew, is through the catalog industry way back when, because we didn't have this awesome thing called the internet and computers. But Montgomery Ward, yes, like Vinny was saying, had been around forever. My first kitchen table that I ever bought after I got married, I still have it, and it's still sitting there. And the plates that we bought and stuff. So, that's 26 years old or something like that, and it's been gone for a long time now. But it had everything in it. I mean,
Montgomery Ward's really was more of a department store. I remember the one that they had at Sunrise Mall here in Corpus Christi was a 2-story building, or it had 2 floors within the store, and they sold everything from clothes to housewares,
you name it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing computers in there. I remember seeing big sound systems and stuff, and I'm like, it's gone. It's gone.
Oh, yeah.
It's gone.
They tried to change their name. They restructured the company in the 90s, I think, and then that's when they became known as just Wards, and changed up all their logos, updated their branding and everything else. I think they tried to restructure themselves financially and rebrand themselves, and ultimately it didn't pan out for them, and they still eventually closed about 10 years later.
I'm going to hit on 2 back-to-back, and then I'm going to leave Vinny to do 2 really, really big ones, and then I'll finish off with a smaller one that most people have never heard. But Vinny reminded me, I had totally forgot that there used to be a store here in Corpus called Venture. And Venture was a type of clothing store like Ross or something like, right?
I would compare it more to like a Target.
Okay.
Because Venture, they sold kind of like how Target seems to sell everything, but their selection is not the best because they try to sell everything. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what Venture was like.
See, I remember that there was a Venture. And I remember probably going in it. I just don't remember very much of it. I thought that it was kind of like a solo serve. It had a little bit of everything, but it was also discounted a little bit, instead of like your Sears or your J.C. Penney's or any of the Montgomery Ward, some of those stores that might sell for a little bit higher price. But Venture was around from 68 to 98, so it only had a 30-year frame there, and it tried to get into competition. It got big enough to where, it was in a lot of different cities in the United States. The other one was one that some of you guys might have heard of. It was also at the Sunrise Mall, called Mervyn's. And Mervyn's was also a clothing store that a lot of people like to go in. They had other things in there too, but it was known for its
mostly
clothing.
Clothes.
Yeah. It was known for its clothes, and that it was inexpensive prices that you could get really nice clothes. And that was around from 49 to 2009. So that was a 60-year run that they had. So they doubled what Venture did, but unfortunately, just like both of them, they were eaten up and spit out by the changing economy. And so Venture and Mervyn's were 2 stores that were found nationwide that primarily dealt with clothing, and they were gone.
Well, what happened with Venture is they tried to aggressively expand into Texas, and they opened up something like 30 stores in Texas, and they spent way too much money doing that, so they couldn't remain solvent after opening so many stores. So that's what wound up shuttering the entire company, is actually the store that we had here in Corpus Christi. They had to close it down because, you said Venture was from 68 to 98. The Venture that we had here in Corpus was open maybe from like 93 to 98. So that expansion, that rapid expansion, they tried to get too big too fast.
And they overextended their boundaries.
And they ended up going under. So here's one we can talk about that is...
And everybody should know this.
Everyone knows this one. They're not dead yet, but they are on death watch. And that company is Sears. Originally Sears and Roebuck and Company from 1892.
Around the same time with the...
Montgomery Ward and Woolworths and everything else. And Sears, the Sears catalog was something that was...
Everybody had
that was an American staple.
Yep. And it was big too.
Yeah, they sold.
Didn't they cost like three or four? They were pretty inexpensive. They didn't cost you an arm and a leg, and I think for a time there they were free. But they were published. I mean, they were thick. It was in color later on. So that would cost a lot of money to print those.
Yeah.
But everybody had to have one. Everybody had to have one.
Yeah, and that was again how people got their merchandise before the advent of things like strip malls and strip centers that people could go to these stores at. Sears did their business by mail order, and that's how they made their fortune. And then they started opening up department stores, usually attached to malls as an anchor store, what's called an anchor store, one of the big
name stores
that
would draw people in, and then they would go into the rest
like
of the mall.
Like your Dillard's and your J.C. Penney's and those kinds of stores that are on the ends of the malls that everyone goes to. And Sears would usually occupy one of those spaces. In Sears, they had
Thousands.
Everything. They sold appliances, they sold clothes, they sold beds, they sold video games. They also sold sound systems.
They're known for their Craftsman tools.
The Craftsman tool brand. They sold lawn equipment. They sold tools.
It was the American place to go.
Yeah, they had a photo studio to take your family photos in. Sears was
eyeglass, opticians.
Yeah, they had opticians.
They had it. You name it.
So Sears was really like the go-to place for whatever you could possibly think of. And now there's only 23 of them left.
Yeah.
Sears and Kmart were actually bought and then combined into one company. So Sears and Kmart, where we said there's only 3 Kmarts left, there's only 23 Sears left. They're both at the same company. They're both clinging on for dear life at this point. I don't think we're going to be seeing a big boom of Sears anytime soon. So Sears, unfortunately, is probably on its way out. And the last 23 stores that are there, soon it's going to be 22 and then 21, and then eventually there's not going to be any left.
Yeah. And it's sad because it was just how can I put this? It was an American way of living. Before there was the internet and you could shop on Amazon and different things like that. I remember being a little kid, and for school shopping, we'd drive to Corpus from Rockport, and we'd go to Sears, and you'd have to try on some jeans, and you'd have to try on a couple shirts, and they had this wonderful thing called a Sears credit card. So since we didn't have a lot of money, my mom knew once a year if she's going to buy me some school clothes, she might have to drop, a certain amount of money, and she could just swipe it and pay that off later, but her son would have some decent clothes to start the school year with. And that's how a lot of people did back then. You'd sit there and you'd get school clothes at the beginning and just say, don't wear them out, take them off as soon as you get all that stuff that you hear. But usually Sears or Penny's, places like that, Mervyn's, you'd go up there and get clothes for the year. And it's just not that way anymore.
No.
Just not that way.
And I guess another one we can cover. This one is
this one hurts.
This one hurts no matter your age.
Yes, this
really
hurts.
Because you knew it's going to be in the episode somewhere. It's Toys R Us. They opened in you got to pay your respects. They opened in 1948 and lasted until 2018. The founder of the company, his name escapes my memory. He founded the company and lived just long enough to see it fail. He died about a year after the company folded. So he was able to see the efforts of his work build up and become this empire, and he was able to watch it completely fall apart. And that's the hell of a story. But Toys R Us was the place to go. I mean, when you were a kid, being able to go to Toys R Us.
To me, KB Toy Store was a fun place because you happen to be at the mall to go to.
Yeah.
Toys R Us was a destination to go to.
Because
it was a standalone.
Yeah, they weren't in
malls. It wasn't in malls. It was by itself, and you went there specifically for a new Barbie or a new Ken or I used to like to go there.
Transformers.
Do you remember how tall the board games were?
Yeah.
They had them stacked to the ceiling, like boom, 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 so you could see Monopoly and Axis versus Allies and Othello or
Risk, Yahtzee,
anything that you could possibly imagine. They were all right there, and there was always a person ready to come by and just pull that one off for you, and you're brand new. And I'm all like, dude, there's so many board games here. And that was just that one side, and all the Star Wars toys, and it was just, and then
wall to wall.
And after video games came in, that was the other side.
I remember that was the coolest thing to me, was being able to buy a video game, because what you did is they had the video games.
This is so cool.
They were locked inside of like like vertical mini blinds, and you could flip through them almost like how how you flip through posters at Walmart, the big poster thing. Well, they had the video game boxes inside these things, and you could look at a strip of video games and look at the front, flip it, look at the back, and read the back. And if that was a game you wanted, then right next to it was a little paper ticket you pulled out that had the name of the game and the barcode on it, and you would take that ticket to the register, and then they would go into the back of the store. They would go get that game from their inventory and bring it out to you. That, for some reason, that made the whole experience just that much cooler, because it was like you're taking a ticket to redeem it for a video game, and they're gonna scan it.
And see, in today's like my children, they have the Xbox One and they have the PS4 and stuff like that, and they just can simply sit there and say, "Dad, can I get this video game?"
And it's downloaded.
And they just hit a button and it says purchased, and then they just have to wait for it to download, and it's already there, and there's no anticipation of going to the store, not sure, there because some days there wouldn't be tickets, which means that game had sold out, and you drive all the way to from Rockport to Corpus, and there's no internet back then or anything. You want to play a video game like Madden or like one of the games that Vinny might have liked and stuff. You get all the way up there, and you rush down the aisle and stuff, and you look, and it shows the game. You're like, oh, and like how you said, you can flip, and you're like, yeah, and then you look for the ticket, and it's empty.
And there's no ticket.
And you're like, what? And then you call somebody over that has their little bitty Toys R Us badge, and you're like, where's the ticket? So like, oh, we sold out this morning. Yeah. It's just really popular, and you're like,
trying to get the new Super
and
Mario
like,
Brothers
what
3.
are you talking about? And then they're like, yeah, it already sold out. So there's nothing that you could do. You traveled 40 miles one way with anticipation. Kids today can just push that button. It's downloaded in 30 minutes, and they got the whole game.
Good to go.
They can play it, and it's just, that's easier, but it's nowhere near as satisfying.
Yeah.
I can tell you when I'd go in there and they'd say new game coming, and where the tickets would be, you could take a ticket and pay how much? Do you remember?
Wasn't it like $5?
$5. You could go to the same register and say, I'm going to buy this. It's going to come out in a month. They would scan it. You'd pay $5, and under my name, Eric DeWolf, there would be a copy that as soon as it came in, it would be sitting in the back waiting for me. And I knew on that day there wouldn't be any tickets missing for me because I'd already pre-bought it. Yeah. And it was just cool.
You keep your receipts, bring it back, pay the rest of it off, then they go get your game from the back with your original receipt taped onto it. I remember that.
And was it what year did PlayStation come out?
95.
Okay, so when the very first PlayStation came out, I had a little bit of extra money, and I remember even talking over with my mom. And I was an adult, but I was like, "Mom, do you think I should get something like this?" And she's like, "If you want it, if you have the extra money and stuff." So I went out and bought this thing called a PlayStation, and it came with 2 controllers, not just the one. And I was like, "This is pretty cool and stuff." And I bought a game called Madden, so I could play football, and I bought an NBA game, and I was just so happy. And then one day, I went up to Toys R Us, and I was looking through all the different games for any other sports games, and there was a game called Resident Evil.
Oh, that was back when they sold M-rated games.
And I was like, what is this? And a kid walking by who worked there was all like, oh man, you're going to love it. There's zombies, and it's survival, and it's like so awesome and stuff. I said, I don't play games like that. I'm more of a sports person. He's all like, just give it a try. And I was with my friend Lewis, who you guys have heard about in different podcasts and stuff, and Lewis was all like, dude, just buy it, man. And I was like, all right, I'll buy it. I played that game for hours and hours and hours.
He turned me on to Resident Evil. I actually learned about it through him when I was younger.
It was an amazing game. I understand if you look at it now, you're like, well, it doesn't look as good as today's games. It doesn't matter. The gameplay was amazing. The very first scare
the
where the dog jumps through the window at the very beginning of the game, I almost pissed myself. I mean, it was an amazing game. Fell in love with it, would play it for hours and hours and hours. And, I just think back that those memories are tied to me going there looking for a different game, and a guy from Toys R Us steering me towards it, and I'm like, I'm not going to play this.
Because that was back when people who worked in the gaming section actually played those games.
Yeah.
So they could tell you Resident Evil is the latest, it's the greatest one that came out. Dude, I just played this, I can't stop, I can't put it down. It was almost like, I hate to compare it to GameStop because this is kind of tangential, but there was Babbage's Funko Land software, etc. You can't beat the Wiz, and then GameStop wound up buying up all this competition, and they all became GameStop. EB Games, Electronics Boutique.
Yeah, love that place.
And so those were places where people focused on video games specifically, but those were kind of specialty stores. And we really didn't have a whole lot of those when Toys R Us was the big place to go. So really, going to Toys R Us and being able to talk to the people who worked in the gaming department was kind of like going to a GameStop today to talk to somebody about the video games. That's where you get the latest scoops, where you find out what's coming out later, what you can reserve, what's currently hot right now, what people are playing. That was part of the experience, was being able to talk to those people, and they were great salesmen, because I remember picking tickets on some of the games they recommended to me. Little Nemo, the Dream Master for NES, loved that game. Maniac Mansion for the NES, loved that game. Mega Man 6, loved that game. You know, like, that was Mega Man 6 was how I got into the Mega Man games, and then I went back and bought 1, 3, and 4, and then 2 later. I'm still missing number 5, but I have.
I remember babysitting him when he was just a little guy, and I think it was one of the Mega Man games, and he was like 4 or 5, and he was just kicking ass on it, and he's just like doing all this stuff, and I'm all like, he's like 4, he's 5, so like, he was just a kid, maybe 5 and a half or something, and he was just like just one after another level, and I'm just like, I hope he sticks with this, because I mean, I'm like, I wouldn't have dodged that thing at that moment. I probably would have died and stuff. He's just like,
I was in the zone.
Just
horse blinders were on, man.
So yeah, Mega Man's been a part of his life for a long time. Well, the last thing we're going to talk about is a restaurant that I actually ate in when I was little, and I totally forgot about it for years and years and years. And I remember my dad always mispronouncing Burger King as Burger Chef. And I was like, Dad, it's called Burger King. He's all, no, it's Burger Chef. It's Burger Chef. And what happened was, from 1954 until 1996, there was a hamburger chain here in the United States called Burger Chef, and they were in Corpus Christi. And we never had one in Rockport, but I remembered years later about going into a Burger Chef with my dad, and the different little cartoons that they had. They tried to mimic McDonald's and Burger King a little bit and stuff. And they had their own burgers, their own fries, and their own uniforms, and like how he said, all the ambiance of its own company. And that's why my dad was so hard-headed. It wasn't that he didn't know the difference between a Burger King and a Burger Chef. He just got used to always going to Burger Chef. So when I was little, evidently when we ate burgers and stuff, we'd always go to the Burger Chef in Corpus if we were visiting Corpus. And I remember vaguely one time going in there, and they had these little bitty, almost like, you could open up the side and get in. It was like a little bitty car. It was a bubble on the top of you, and it was plastic, and it had little bitty wheels that you could drive. And I just kept on begging my dad, can I get one of those? But the only way that you got them, they had them on display. And the only way that you could get one, I remember I was like 6 or 7. I was like, Dad, I want that so bad. And he's like, my boy wants that, just give it to him and stuff. And they're like, well, sir, you have to play Scratch Off. And they had like a Burger Chef Scratch Off game. And my dad would take us there all the time. Especially, you know, so that I could win these stupid things, and I never won one. And I just remember that from years, that I wanted one of these stupid things, because they fit your little body. You literally got inside, and it would be like a little bitty bike, but it was plastic, and it looked kind of like almost like something from the Jetsons or something like that. And I just remember my dad wanting to get it so bad for me, but they only had 2 on display, and you couldn't take either. You had to win one, and it was almost like McDonald's with their Monopoly pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So nobody was ever going to win any. They were probably just there to get you to buy stuff. But the thing I was showing Vinny before this was I was showing him some of the old Burger Chef commercials, which were way before even my time, back in the 50s and 60s. But they were showing it, and I totally forgot. They were the first fast food company to really bring in a salad bar. And so what happened is, instead of you just going in there and get your burger and fries and stuff, if you're, they tried to do the commercial like working people on the go and stuff, and they're like, instead of having a burger and stuff, go in there and get your fresh lettuce, get your awesome tomatoes and stuff. And they had a full salad bar. So some of the things that you might see in certain restaurants now and stuff, Burger Chef was doing back in the 70s, where they're trying to promote health food and a healthier living than just eating burgers and stuff. And they actually had, you know, your all the stuff. It was a full salad bar, and once you paid for it, you got and you could go back and just refill it and stuff. So it wasn't like a one-time deal. You could eat all you wanted the salad bar. And so that's just one of the things that they tried to compete, but nobody could compete with McDonald's. You know, Burger King can't.
McDonald's was becoming a powerhouse with the Happy Meal.
Yeah.
And
what do you remember in the video what they called their meal? I don't remember.
The Magic Meal.
Yeah, the Magic Meal, and you got like a magician type thing and like cards to play with and stuff. So they try to compete with the Happy Meal with the Magic Meal.
Yeah, and then Burger King had the Kids Club meal. Mm-hmm. They all had their own variant of the Happy Meal, because that was what made McDonald's rock stars, and that's why they rose to the top, just all the way up.
So those are a list of.
Well, hang on. I got one more.
You do?
Because you're talking about experiences that this generation will never get to experience, and one that's close to my heart is Blockbuster Video. So,
which we've discussed a little bit here and there and stuff, but
a little bit, yeah. But Blockbuster Video, founded in 1985, they went bankrupt in 2010, I believe. And then they also, kind of like Circuit City, somebody bought the rights to the name, and they tried to operate with Dish Network, and then that went defunct in 2014. So there of course famously is one Blockbuster still remaining that's independently owned. It's in like Oregon, I think.
It's far away.
Yeah,
from here.
it's
there had
somewhere.
been one in the Valley here in Texas, and they closed about 2 years ago.
And so Blockbuster Video and all movie stores, like Movie Gallery, Hollywood Video, Family Video, some Family Video stores are actually still open if you live in the region in the northeastern United States where they still operate, although COVID-19 kind of put the damper on a lot of them, and a lot of them did close up because of coronavirus, because people weren't going out, and they just couldn't stay afloat. But the experience of going to a movie store and being able to browse the rack of movies to figure out how you're going to spend your Friday night or your Saturday night, or what you're going to watch. And maybe you want to get the Terminator 2, but if that case isn't behind the movie case, guess what? You're not watching Arnold. You got to pick a different movie. So that introduced a lot of people to movies that they might not have otherwise seen, because you want to rent a movie. You're not going to leave without renting something. But Terminator's out, so you start looking at, well, what else can I get? And then you might pick a weird alien science fiction B movie from the rack, from the 99-cent, two-day rental rack.
And also, Vinny, you're not bringing up how a lot of stores had their, like, Blockbuster picks.
Oh, yeah.
And so they'd have either people from inside the store or whatever management told them to put, and they'd say, these are our picks of the month, and they'd try to funnel you to go see these other movies, and, you'd try to get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that is gone.
Yeah, it's there these days. Everything is available online streaming. It's never going to be sold out or unavailable.
For those of you that enjoyed this, please comment, follow. Let's get to 600 followers,
and you can let us know some of your favorite stores that have closed up regionally, from wherever you're listening to this to. If you got memories of Sears, or you got memories of Kmart or Blockbuster, let us know. Or if there's something that we missed that was important to you, let us know in the comments. We love to hear from you.
And don't forget, a lot of the people on here think that you see the YouTube video, but we have hundreds and hundreds of listens online from Spotify and Anchor podcasts and all these different podcasts. And I was just telling Vinny the last time that I looked, we got people from Syria, we got people from Australia, and I think it's been quite a while since I put a list of all the different countries that we have at least one follower in. And it's astronomical. And those are the audio people. Those are the people that will never see our faces, that just listen 100% online on Apple Music or on Spotify or any of the other wonderful Podbean, anything that hosts us. I always think it's the video. You're going to see us, and there are a good amount of you. But the thing is, there's so many people that also listen that have never seen our faces, and we want to hear from you guys. If you're in Syria right now, if you're in Australia, if you're in England, if you're in France, if you're in any of the other countries that we've ever touched in any way, Canada, Brazil, Mexico, what are stores that you grew up with or brands that you grew up with that they're gone now?
Yeah.
They're just gone. We'd love to hear from our international supporters.
Yeah, let us know. You can find us on YouTube as Two Old Pirates, and you can drop us a comment with your YouTube account.
Or you can find us on Twitter at Eric Two Old Pirates. I think that's what I'm called.
Yeah.
And you can find me there and stuff. We'd love to hear from you guys. We always love to hear from anybody who listens to us, and we're so thankful that even one person listens. Mm-hmm. So for Two Old Pirates, this is Eric.
And Vinny.
So we'll see you for episode 56 next time.
Yes.
That was anticlimactic.
Peace.
Yes. Peace.
Don't do it backwards. That's bad.
What's this?
That's like flipping someone off.
That's over like in Australia or something, right?
Yeah, it's like an English thing.
Right. See, this will have to be some of the like uncredited things that we put together for our fans.